Good afternoon. Let's have 1 minute together in some silence. Now, I'm going to assume that you've all worked with the 7 Spiritual Steps audios and or the book, so that we don't spend time covering what we've already covered. And particularly, as I emailed you a few days ago, step 4 and 5, God, mind, form, and then belief. And we will, I'm sure, be referring to it throughout the live classes now. A little something came through for the start of our class this morning, so let me read this to you. The reason truth doesn't work for those seeking it, the reason it hasn't worked and will continue not to work, is down to one misunderstanding alone. Truth is one and oneness. And indeed, there is just one misunderstanding that keeps truth from experience. Right there we should stop, as we should so many times, and ponder that. And so perhaps when you get the audio or after the classes today, you will. Just that. All inability to witness truth is for or because of one misunderstanding alone. That misunderstanding is the belief that form, in its infinite variety, is real in and of its own self. All inability to witness truth experientially, visibly and tangibly as everyday reality is the belief that the forms of experience, the hims, hers, its, activities, amounts, places, conditions, are real, are entities in and of their own selves. We believe that we are real in and of our own selves. This is the personal self spoken of throughout Scripture. We believe our parents, our birthday and birthplace, our self, our body, our family, our upbringing, our education, the type of character and personality we are or have, our intelligence or lack of, our skills, our ability or inability, our needs and the avenues of them, our home, our relationship or lack of relationship, or love or lack of love, our money or lack of money, is, we believe, in and of its own self, something real, an actual entity, an actual condition that we have to deal with, something that is different from God, separate from God, and which needs God in it to heal it, harmonize it, pacify it, prosper it, and bring justice and equality to it. That belief is the one and only problem we have in life. And it is the one and only reason we are unable to witness truth this hour and for the rest of eternity in experience. Everything stems from that one reason. I should say everything of our difficulty in experiencing truth stems from that one reason. And when you work with step 4, God, mind, form, and you gain a thorough understanding of what we are being told in that step. Thorough. So that you could sit where I am and teach us all about it. But only after you've witnessed its truth. Once you've done that, then you are getting rid of that one problem. And only then are you getting rid of that one problem. And then when you move into step 5, which is belief. And when you have got rid of that false belief and are now witnessing truth and then are able to sit where I am and teach us all about it, then you've truly got rid of the one problem that's keeping truth from your experience. And not until then. So you see, we can go and carry on reading all the scripture we want to read and attending all the classes and reading all the books we wish to. But unless we realize that our problem is that one problem, then we're not only seeking and asking amiss, but we're even hearing and reading amiss. We're lost before we start. And this is true. And you know it's true because the result is that we're still coming to class seeking a way of experiencing truth. If we were experiencing truth, we would not need to attend class. We'd be giving classes, not attending them as students. So we know this is true. We also know that we have devoted a long time to truth. We all have. We've all read almost ceaselessly. We've all listened and attended classes almost ceaselessly. We've all tried almost ceaselessly to gain an understanding of truth and be able to witness it. We all have. And so you see, it's not a lack of effort, it's not a lack of devotion, it's not a lack of wanting to, but it's a lack of knowing what it is we're actually seeking. We seek amiss, we therefore read amiss and hear amiss and ponder amiss and walk around our life amiss. And it's frustrating. I remember the days. Very frustrating. So please, as we go through this now, and as you go through the rest of your life now, as you read any truth, or hear or attend any class of truth, and even as you read the 7 steps or listen to them now, understand what we've just heard. There's one reason that we're unable to witness truth, and once we know that, now we are able to start seeking truth aright. We are able to start reading aright, hearing aright. And when you do know that and do nothing but seek the dissolving of that one problem, then, let me assure you, you're walking right into heaven very fast. But if you continue to seek amiss, which means that you continue to try to witness God or get God to come to where you are, i.e. materially, to fix experience or harmonize or bring justice to or bring equality to, peace to, prosperity to your experience in and of its own self. In other words, if you are trying to bring God to be visible in something you can name in and of its own self, or for something you can name in and of its own self, you'll fail all the way from here to the end of eternity. You'll wear yourselves out. Which eventually is a very good thing, because when one morning you have absolutely no human energy left, finally you're in a place where the personal self is exhausted and can begin to therefore and thereby witness truth. Hope you heard that. All my insistence over these years to drop the personal self, all those horrible classes that everyone murmured about, probably still are, were because of this reason. You see, if we do not be rid of the personal self, and don't worry, I'm not going there again, but if we do not get rid of that personal self, then we are full of it, unfortunately. And that personal self has nothing but the need of God in its experience. It can't drop its sense of life. And it forever gets in the way of truth being evident. And so this is why, and hopefully now we've found ways to word all this that comes through a different door throughout the 7 steps and now throughout the class, that enables us to hear why we need to drop everything but this one reason truth is unavailable to experience until we get rid of this one reason. Now, we're going to refer to quite a bit of scripture throughout this class because it's time for you to have authoritative voice other than just teacher's voice. So we're going to start with the Wisdom of Solomon, which is probably the most important book in the Apocrypha. So let's hear some of what Solomon says. It's profound, it's beautiful, and it highlights this one reason that truth is unavailable to experience, and gives the solution. Love uprightness, you who judge the land. We recently heard, I think, was it the very last class, of our need to love God with all our heart, all our soul, all our strength, all our mind. And this is what this means. Love God, love uprightness, love truth. You who judge the land. Think of the Lord with goodness. And seek him with sincerity of heart. For he is found by those who do not try him, by seeking amiss, by judging amiss, by thinking of anything at all of the entirety of experience as being something of its own self, rather than being nothing but God and the whole of God. For he is found by those who do not try him, and is manifested to those who do not disbelieve him. Is manifested. We're not speaking of something which will become manifested. He is manifested. The finished kingdom is right here, right now, and perfectly visible and tangible to us if we do not disbelieve experience as being God. Step 4, God, mind, form. All is God. If we do not disbelieve that, and this means at every moment, at every step, we must not disbelieve it. We can't somehow attend class or attend meditation or go into some silence and get a good realization of God as all, and then step out the front door and think that the flower is a flower. Isn't this flower beautiful? It's something of its own self. How beautiful she is. Or the dollar is the dollar, or the neighbour is the neighbour, or the barking dog is the barking dog. We can't do that. That's disbelieving God entirely. God is all form. And we must live that awareness. We must be completely rid of all belief that anything at all is something other than God. It isn't. And so if you believe it, you're harming yourself alone. You're not harming me. You're not harming God. You're not harming Jesus. And you're not actually harming the truth of what you think you're harming. You're not actually harming the truth of what you disbelieve as being God. God is unchangeable. You can't do anything to lessen God, change God, dim God. So God is standing right there in all its glory, even while we believe it isn't God, and therefore suffer lack, limitation of the fullness of the God experience as our world, as all form. That's our problem. We're doing it to ourselves. But even as we're doing that to ourselves, there stands the very fullness of God as all form. If we say we're unhealthy, or we're ill or diseased, or injured, then we are keeping that very belief in our experience, because our body is the body of God, the only body there is, and we cannot make the body of God ill, diseased, injured. All we can do is injure our sense of it. And the way we injure our sense of it is to believe that our body isn't God, but is something of its own self, different from God or separate from God, or at least separate from God for this moment while it's ill or diseased or injured. If we do that to ourselves, then we are perpetuating the false sense And because sense is experience, we will continue to experience that very illness or disease or injury until we stop misbelieving or disbelieving. And start filling ourselves, filling our senses with the awareness that all is God. Period. There isn't a moment when all is not God. There may well be moments of sensory misperception, but we've got to be greater than that moment of sensory misperception. We're in charge of our senses. Senses are not in charge of us, and if they seem to be right now, then let's get real. Let's take charge. Let's take up the dominion we have been given, or we are, as the very presence of God. We must take it up. We must exercise it. We must accept it and be it. Certainly. And thereby fill our senses with the light of truth, that now sense, that now know that all, despite momentary sense or lapse of belief, is God. All is God. Despite appearance, all is God. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with appearance, even if it looks quirky at the moment. There's nothing ever wrong with appearance. Only if we believe appearance as being something of its own self is there something wrong. And what is wrong? Again, the root, the one problem, and that is the belief that the appearance, whatever it is, him, her, it, is something of its own self, something real, an entity that has to be dealt with, has to be managed, has to be pacified, prospered, equalized. Only that belief is wrong. Appearance is never wrong. Is the dark of night wrong? No, it's harmless. Is a momentary hole in the ocean because we dipped a bucket in it wrong? No, it's harmless. It's impotent. And if we will release it, if we will not attach our false belief to it, then we will witness light dissolving the dark, and we will witness the equality of the ocean very, very quickly filling up what appears to be a hole in the ocean. In this very way, if we do not attach to illness or disease or injury, in this very way of non-attachment and non-belief in it being anything of its own self, but we fill the senses with the light of truth, that all is God, despite appearance, then in this very way we will so quickly and do watch illness or disease, even what's called fatal disease or injury, correct itself in experience, become whole and healthy again in experience. We will watch all the dollars we ever need fill our very place of existence. Always, if we do not attach to the belief, which is 100% false, that dollars or a seeming lack of dollars and perhaps a seeming avenue or vehicle of dollars is anything of its own self. It isn't. It's nothing. It's a moving imagery, that's all, with no power, no reality, no entity to it whatsoever. And if we know that and do not attach to the appearance, do not spend time with that appearance, worrying about it, being concerned, and then searching our truth books for the answer, we'll never find it, so you're wasting your time. If we will just stay in God with a beautiful smile on our face and a beautiful freedom in our body, and get on with life joyfully, fully, freely, then we will so quickly and infallibly see all the dollars fill up what seemed to be a lack of dollars, just as we watch all the ocean fill up what seems to be a hole in the ocean. Infallibly. We will watch harmony and peace and love fill up any place that seems to be lacking in it. We will watch food and justice fill up any place or group of people that seem to need it. If we do not attach, if we do not believe it of its own self. So do you hear Solomon now? Love truth, love uprightness, you who judge the land, you who are walking around judging the land. Stop it. Love uprightness. Think of the Lord with goodness and seek him with sincerity of heart, for he is found by those who do not try him, and is manifested to those who do not disbelieve him. The Spirit of the Lord fills the world. Tell me, is there any unmanifested spirit? Is there any undemonstrated spirit? Is there any invisible spirit? Is there any intangible spirit? No, there isn't. And the reason there isn't, and we could come up with 100 or 1,000 synonyms, doesn't make any difference. The reason there is no unmanifested, undemonstrated, invisible or intangible spirit is because if there were, then there would have to be two departments in oneness. Two types of oneness. Now, what kind of nonsense is that? Why don't we call Pythagoras and ask him if one can have two types of itself? Why don't we call up aerodynamics and ask it, do you have two types of yourself? One that keeps planes in the sky and another one that crashes them? Because it isn't quite yet manifest or manifested or demonstrated or visible. Some of it is up there, 30,000 feet up, but 20,000 feet up, oh no, it's not fully manifested yet. Come on, we have to get this nonsense out of awareness. You see, and right there we go back to step 4, where we do not yet know it. God is mind, is form. The three, the seeming three, are one. There isn't any place but omniplace, omnipresence. There isn't anywhere but omnipresence, omniwhere, oneness. There isn't any function but the omnifunction. Even in experience. Experience doesn't change God. Read step 4 until you can demonstrate it. There's no aspect of being. Let's hear it again. There is no aspect of being that isn't the whole of God. And if we wished to, we could divide that word aspect into a million pieces so that we have every grain of what we describe as our aspects of experience, and we could prove that actually that one grain is still the whole of God, because the whole of God is the only, and God is indivisible and inseparable. So it doesn't matter what the intellect does with experience, even if it chops it up into a billion trillion little pieces. So now we have what it thinks is a billion trillionth. Doesn't make any difference. That billion trillionth is the whole of God. If we crack open an atom right now, we discover the whole of God, the whole of infinity exists inside that atom. So what about this billion trillionth? I don't think it's as small as the inside of an atom. And yet, inside the atom, we find the whole of infinity. The whole of what you are, the whole of what God is inside that atom. And we could carry on splitting the inside of the atom. And every time we do, even after a billion trillion times, we still find the whole of God exists fully and fully visible and fully tangible, manifested, demonstrated, real, right there. What about the other way? Instead of splitting and dividing, what about magnifying? Maybe that's where we think God is not. God is in. I understand that. I can split the atom and carry on splitting the atom. I understand God's there. But that doesn't help my diseased body. And that doesn't help my lack of dollars. And it doesn't help my lack of love. My lack of purpose. My expression. My reason for being in the world. Or being alive. It doesn't help my magnified experience. God is the only. Your experience is just mind. If we took your mind away, then the whole universe disappears, because form is mind. And because only God is mind. Everything that is true of God is true of mind. I hope none of you are trying to find reasons why that isn't true. It is true. If anyone thinks it isn't true, they are saying that mind is something different from or outside of God. Which means they're equally saying there is infinity and omnipresence and eternity and the mind. If God is all, how could the mind be different? How could the mind be anything but God? Go off and work that one out and come back when you've worked it out. And I'll tell you when you'll be back. And I'll tell you what you'll be back with. You'll be back when you've figured out that only God is, therefore the mind is God. And what you'll be back with is the fact that God is mind and mind is God. All the same, all one, all of omnipresence, all of infinity, fully present at every point of itself at the same time. So the whole of mind is the whole of God. The whole of God is the whole of mind. But let's not wait for you to get back. Let's carry on. You can get back in your own time. And mind is form. Mind is the only form. Mind is the universe. Prove to me that there is any universe if we were to remove mind from you. You can't. Let's give you a metaphor. The view you have of your world this moment, wherever you are, the view you have of your world is a product of the floor you are standing on or sitting on. The whole view, the whole experience that you can have is a product of the floor you are standing or sitting or even walking around on. Everything about it. So let's assume we are on the ground floor for the moment. Everything of experience is a product of the ground floor. Everything, not one aspect or element of experience is anything but the product of you being on the ground floor, or me being on the ground floor. If we were now to go to the third floor, then our experience of life is entirely different, including the view of life, that which is visible, the dimension of life, the flavour of it, the ingredients of it, are all different, even by rising to the third floor. Our whole experience now is 100% a product of being on the third floor. We can't do the things that we did on the ground floor. Nor could we, from the ground floor, do the things that we now can on the third floor. You catch that? We simply can't do it. Now let's go to the 10th or the 20th or the 100th floor. And experience, the whole product of experience, is entirely different all over again. And this is what mind is. It's one of the degrees, the infinite degrees of awareness of God, of infinity itself. And so the whole product of experience as this degree of awareness, which we call the human mind. And remember, there are infinite degrees of mind, of awareness, each degree being its own formation. And so this degree we call the human mind is the worldly or the universal formation that we experience. And everything of it is a product of its own formation. Take mind away, and where is that formation? If we took the third floor away as we were standing on it, where is the whole product of its level. It's gone. If we took the 100th floor away as we were standing on it, where is the whole product of its experience? It's gone if the 100th floor is no longer there. And in this very way, if we take the mind away, the whole formation of mind is gone. Now, really, you've got to work with step 4 so thoroughly that you get this. Because if you don't, then you're still living with this subtle, perhaps ever more subtle, belief that form indeed is something different from God. And whilst you still have that belief, you can't properly hear truth, read truth, meditate truthfully, or sit in the silence, because very, very, and literally ever more subtly, we sit in the silence for some kind of result. And whilst we're doing that, we're not in truth. And because we're not in truth, we can't witness truth. It is only when we know what we've just heard and can now sit in the silence just for the glory of sitting in truth, adventuring in God, letting God pour through us ever greater light, ever greater wisdom, knowledge, God's knowledge, which is always embodied. It's only as we're able to completely and utterly relax in God, sit as a nothing in God. And hear that, let's underline that word nothing. Sit as a nothingness of personal self and literally let God be God as itself, as this presence we are, for no reason under the sun but that of sitting in the bliss of God itself as what we are, meaning as what our whole universe is. Do we witness God as God form? But the moment we, or if we're still sitting with some kind of belief that sitting in silence is going to harmonize form because it needs it, then we have no truth in us whatsoever, and because of that are unable to witness truth. Let's hear more of the wisdom of Solomon. God did not make death. And he does not enjoy the destruction of the living. And for these words, death and living, let's also realize that it means every aspect of experience. God made no discord whatsoever. God made no lack whatsoever. Only God is, and only the fullness of God exists. No other type of existence is possible. Only God is. Only God exists. Only God is mind. Only God is form. There is no other type of mind, no other type of form. It's an utter impossibility. So let's understand this as meaning God did not make any type of illness, disease, and its result, eventual death, lack, limitation, discord, unhappiness, injustice, cruelty. None of it. God made none of it. Only God is, and God is pure. Pure God alone. Pure good alone. Infinity, omnipresence, grace, bliss, divinity, eternity, love. For he created everything to exist. And the generative forces of the world are wholesome. And there is no poisonous drug in them. And the kingdom of Hades is not on earth. Hades, death. The kingdom of death is not on earth, For uprightness, truth, is immortal. There's then a couple of pages of all the pain and suffering we experience when we do not fully believe that all is God. And then they reasoned incorrectly, untruthfully, and they went astray. Their wickedness blinded them. Their disbelief, their untruth, their belief in the world as being something of its own self blinded them. And they did not know God's secrets. For God created man for immortality and made him the image of his own eternity. Image is the form. You can use the synonym form for image. In truth, they will shine out and spread like sparks throughout the universe. They will judge nations and rule peoples, and the Lord will reign over them forever. The Lord will be the power of experience forever. The Lord will be. Remember, the earth is the Lord's, the earth being all form. All form is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Therefore, when we know that and rest from all concern about appearance, all effort for making appearance good or better or healed or prospered or pacified, then it is that the Lord reigns over us. The power of our experience is in the hands of the Lord. The truth is omnipower, omnipresence. And we witness it, and we witness it every day if we'll just leave experience alone. As gods, needing no assistance from us. Those who trust in Him will understand the truth. So beautiful. Do you hear that? Those who trust that God is the only, that God is mind, is form. Trust it, and you will begin to understand the truth. And those who are faithful will cling to Him in love. For His chosen will find favour and mercy. When we cling to truth in love, when we are in love with God, with truth, with oneness, which means, remember, when our attention is intoxicated with the love of truth. In a class a few years ago, we heard the metaphor of love, and we heard that, and we've all had this experience at least one or more times in our life if we're not having it right now. We remember when we fell in love, and we are intoxicated with that love. Intoxicated. Our every thought is the love we're feeling for this beautiful person we've fallen in love with. Every sense, every grain, even while we're working, people often say to me, what about while I'm working? How can I keep my mind on God, my awareness on God while I'm working, while I'm in meetings, while I'm busy with my family, my children, my whatever it may be? Well, let me ask you, how did you stop keeping your mind, your attention, your whole senses alight with the love of the beautiful one you fell in love with and hopefully today are in love with, whoever he or she is, or whoever will be in experience? And if you rewind that 30 seconds, you'll find the secret of it. When we are in love, you can't stop love from intoxicating your every sense and your every minute, despite how so-called busy you are at work or with family or with whatever it may be. You can't help it. And so here is the way of loving God. When we know the truth, we love God. And we are so intoxicated with that love, that living awareness, that all of this experience I have been born into in awareness is a gift. And what type of gift is it? God's gift. Not only that, God itself as the gift. When we know that, we can't help but be in love with all of experience. We can't help but live with the joy and the light and the freedom and the dance of the love of God every moment. You begin to know when you're there because people will come up to you and say, how come you're so happy all the time? How come you're smiling all the time? Well, how can we not smile and be happy all the time? I live and move and have my being in and as God, as my whole mind and my whole world, and my whole universe and my whole infinity, as my every thought, as my every sense, as my every step and breath. How can I not be happy? It's impossible not to be happy. How can I stop smiling when the whole of bliss, the whole of infinity, the whole of love, the whole of grace, the whole of wisdom, the whole of understanding meets me at every single glance and every single step, winks at me, holds my hand, leads me right into the promised land? How? I sound like some preacher, don't I? But how can I not be happy? Or Martin Luther King, that's who spoke of the promised land. And indeed, we're witnessing more and more of it. I heard Martin, or some of Martin Luther King's speech this morning. How can we not be happy when we are the living experience of nothing but God itself and the fullness of God itself, because there isn't any other type of God? Even if appearance tries to suggest it isn't God. It doesn't matter what appearance tries to suggest, it's nonsense. It's not an entity. It has no power, no reality, no truth to it whatsoever. So why would we continue to believe it once we know that? We don't ever have to. And I'm here to tell you that it only takes one single little grain of truth to witness what we would call miracles of life, miracles of healing, miracles of dollars and abundance, miracles of opportunity, miracles of love, miracles of peace and harmony, miracles of others waking up. We're blessed to experience one who is waking up so fast and so beautifully and truthfully, every day more, and is, in our experience, just of very tender years still. But he is amazing. Truth is amazing as this one, blossoming, pouring through, springing forth, like Jesus said, as infinite waters within. And so the miracle of our friends, our students, our family, breaking through this crust of misbelief or misperception or disbelief is everywhere about when we are the truth we wish to witness. All right, let's break there for 10 minutes. I'm going to leave the phone on actually because we had a little difficulty getting on this afternoon, so let's leave it on, but let's come back to it at 1:15 in about 10 or 12 minutes and sit in some beautiful meditation together in oneness. Thank you.